Self-Unfoldment by Disciplines of Realization by Manly Palmer Hall, Releasing and Developing the Inward Perceptions, Practical Instruction in the Philosophy of Disciplined Thinking and Feeling, Part 1. Modern psychology has invented the term mystical experience to explain the mystery of illumination. Havelock Ellis had such an experience in his life. He glimpsed the law, and thereafter everything was entirely as it ought to be. He could not convince others who ridiculed or disapproved, nor confer his understanding. He could state the certainty, but could not share it, had no power to force conviction. The theme of this book is that illumination is as natural as life itself. There can be no enlightened living without a realization of the reason for living. This reason cannot be supplied by the intellect, nor can it be discovered by the senses. The true reason for our existence can be found only through communion with the inner self. The purpose of the book is to develop awareness and thoughtfulness so that it becomes part of you. The disciplines are not to be practiced as a ritual, but as an inherent quality of yourself, until acceptance of them becomes as natural as the processes of eating and digesting food. The principal sources of the metaphysical doctrines are Oriental, adapted to our modern Western life, which is more blunt, more obvious, less imaginative. They do not include the various forms of yoga, breathing exercises, and Kundalini stimulation, for these are among the dangerous teachings and no more suited to the typical American businessman than would be the introduction of high-pressure economics into India. The doctrines have also been supplemented with certain teachings of the philosophic schools of Plato and Pythagoras, which have not been lost and here are adapted to modern life to accomplish their original purpose to release into manifestation the spiritual values within you. The practice of metaphysical discipline will not remove obstacles, suffering, poverty, relatives, or debt, but by strengthening character, it will help you to gain mastery over any circumstances by facing them fairly and solving them honestly. Chapter 1. Theory of Disciplines. This book will have to use words in an attempt to reveal to you something that cannot be put into words. Consideration of metaphysical disciplines must begin with a definition of terms, for only after having established the meaning of certain words can we proceed safely with this extremely abstract study. But success in your study will require that you develop an intuitive grasp of metaphysical implications. Meditation is an inward contemplation of divine realities. The subjects of meditation are the aspects of truth. Truth may be cognized only when the student is in a tranquil state. There must be no tension or effort. Realization is the simultaneous understanding and acceptance of the divinity and the divine purpose in all things. Even more, it is the acceptance of things as they are and the rightness of things as they are. Illumination is a state of conscious at one-ment with the universal principle man's participation in truth. The methods by which illumination may be achieved are called disciplines. Discipline is the specific directing and controlling of personal action. Discipline results in complete self-mastery. All discipline must be effortless yet actual. Spiritual development is not the result of a desperate effort to be good. It is rather an inward realization of right, which transmutes the whole nature into the likeness of truth. Growth is natural to man. No one thinks of a flower trying to bloom or of a tree trying to grow. The blossoming of the flower is a manifestation of universal law flowing through the plant. It is the will of the infinite made manifest in the finite. Illumination is the blossoming of the soul in man. It is just as natural, simple, and inevitable as the flowering of the rose. The wise man does not try to be wise. Wisdom is as natural to him as folly is common to ordinary mortals. Man does not have to try to be himself. Effort is evidence of inconsistency in the individual. Most religious organizations impose strict rules and regulations upon their members. These rules and regulations consist principally of thou shalt nots, the purpose being to force man into a state of grace by inhibiting and limiting him. Any individual who tries to crush out with brute force of will the vices within himself achieves only inhibition and neurosis. When through realization we come to understand the divine energy that causes us to exist and grow, we cease to impede its natural flow in and through ourselves. When through realization we become aware of this divine virtue within ourselves, our inner nature is enlightened, with the result that our outer nature inevitably is transmuted. In Zen Buddhism, the way of illumination is called the gateless gate. The Taoists of China describe it as the effortless effort. Metaphysical disciplines should not be directed toward material ends. The true mystic does not meditate or concentrate in an effort to attract to himself the things of the material world, nor does he attempt to find in meditation an escape from the responsibilities or problems of his objective life. This does not mean, however, that metaphysical disciplines produce no physical result. When a man puts his inner life in order through meditation and realization, the result is a happier and better physical existence. If you can be taught the philosophical life, that is, the effortless way to grow, you will have been established in the foundations of wisdom. If this book can reveal in some way through the insufficient medium of words the wordless truth that being wise is the most simple and natural state of the evolved man, a great and permanent good will be yours. The Chinese goddess Kuan Yin, the Lady of Mercy, is depicted robed in flowing garments which are, to the Buddhist mind, symbolical of the cosmic pattern of life. Existence is really a pattern flowing towards the real, a motion in space, a flowing of all life toward wisdom and truth. Metaphysical disciplines are not to be regarded as competitive exercises in which one vies with another in the magnitude of his imaginings or yearns towards some metaphysical aristocracy. All metaphysical exercises worthy of the name are an unfolding of self into the light of virtue, beauty, and wisdom. The illustration for this lesson is taken from the Zen school of Chinese art. It is the lone traveler, a solitary monk standing on the edge of a great cliff, gazing out into the mist. Far beyond rise dimly the shadows of high mountains in ageless contrast to gnarled and broken trees in the foreground. Much has been said of the loneliness of wisdom, how the truth seeker becomes a pilgrim wandering from star to star. To the ignorant, the wise man is lonely because he abides in distant heights of the mind, but the wise man himself does not feel lonely. Wisdom brings him nearer to life, closer to the heart of the world than the foolish man can ever be. Bookishness may lead to loneliness, and scholarship may end in a battle of beliefs, but the wise man gazing off into space sees not an empty void, but a space full of life, truth, and law. A metaphysical student who tries to be more than he is can be very lonely. Only a part of him has gone forward. He has renounced old attachments, but he has not grown up to new ideals. He has renounced material things, but he has not outgrown them. He clings to a little of ignorance and strives for a little of truth. Such a man is lonely and miserable. Space around him is still an empty void, for he has not realized the immanence of truth. In terms of realization, truth is the cosmic fact, and that fact is the most beautiful, the most noble, the most gentle, the most wise, the most desirable of all things. This truth is not merely a word that can be defined, but it is a sufficiency toward which man grows. It is the absolute law that abides in the farthermost and the innermost. It is all sufficient to the wise man. Only the real can perceive or value the real. The ancient masters have told us that illumination, the final reward of discipline, comes suddenly when no man knoweth. At the end of the path is that state desired of all men. It is impossible to say when illumination will come to any individual. It may come tomorrow, or it may come after 10,000 lives. But discipline inevitably will bring closer this day of liberation. Metaphysics promises man freedom, security, and wisdom only when he has elevated his own nature to the appreciation and realization of the divine plan. Personal application. Your desire is to develop a practical philosophy of life that will assist in the solution of your personal problems. It will equip you for greater usefulness to yourself and others. Your first need is for acquaintance with the general subject of spiritual development. Then you need an outline of a practical metaphysical program you can adapt to your own particular needs. All humanity is subject to discipline in some form. In the material world, discipline leads to skill and efficiency. Lack of this discipline must result in diminished earning power. Albert Hubbard once said that the average untrained working man earns $100 a day, but $95 must be deducted to pay the salaries of those who do his thinking for him and correct his mistakes. People go to school to learn trades because of the realization that skill is necessary to economic survival. It is just as necessary to develop skill in the metaphysical sciences. Religion, the most exact of the sciences, is not to be mastered merely through prayer and fasting. You do not become a good bookkeeper through hoping, nor do you become a great philosopher by mere desire. You must subject yourself to philosophic disciplines. You must work toward proficiency in the sacred sciences. An aspiring few envision a larger purpose behind the visible world and its activities. The reward for increased efforts is fuller realization of spiritual truths. Peace and security are not to be found by merely informing the mind or increasing the intellect. Regardless of how deeply a man feels, how broadly he studies and improves himself outwardly, he is not complete until he has perfected his inner disposition. Until spiritual consciousness has tinctured and brought to perfection all the efforts of the intellect, man is not secure and not sufficient. Material education is directed toward increasing the skill of mind and hand. It may also give man a working knowledge in the arts, crafts, and sciences. But modern education does not give the student any knowledge of his own inner self. The spirit, the soul, and the metaphysical parts of man find no place in scholasticism. The result is evident. Material knowledge does not bestow happiness. It has not resulted in honesty. It has failed to inspire integrity. Only spiritual knowledge can complete education by conferring security, moral courage, and spiritual enlightenment. The end of metaphysical education is not memorizing facts in a textbook. It is the expression through trained and developed faculties of the convictions of the inner spiritual life. All the great systems of metaphysical philosophy have included disciplines intended to release and perfect the higher ideals of the individual. All things being equal, the individual with the best education will gain the most through metaphysical discipline. Metaphysics is not to be regarded as a substitute for education, but these disciplines mean the most to those already informed on a large variety of subjects. The man who thinks he can gain a technical knowledge of Latin through meditation will be very disappointed. Metaphysical disciplines had their origin in the oldest of religious systems. Schools of metaphysical thought have flourished in India for thousands of years. They existed also in most of the great nations of the ancient world. The difference between metaphysics and theology is principally in the matter of discipline. Julian the Apostate, the wisest and most virtuous of the Roman emperors, declared that only the noblest and most learned men were worthy to participate in religion. Plato taught that purity and self-discipline were the first essentials of the philosophic life. After Nero murdered his mother, he was afraid to enter the temple of the mysteries, although by right he was the high priest of Rome. The old rules and disciplines which Plato, Pythagoras, and Aristotle obeyed have not been lost. For centuries, they have been ignored by Western thinkers who emphasized only the objective values of life. The Buddhist monks of China, Siam, and Burma, and the Brahmin priests of India still know and live the old disciplines. Strangely enough, These disciplines are really very simple. It is the application of them that is difficult. The purpose of these secret teachings is to release into manifestation the spiritual values in man. The great initiates of the ancient world bear witness to the efficacy of the disciplines. But we no longer live in the time of Plato or Aristotle. The race is confronted with a new social experience. Economics and industrialism have arisen to plague the souls of men. The old exercises must be adapted to modern life if they really are to accomplish their original purpose. Many efforts have been made to adapt metaphysical exercises to the tempo of modern thinking. For the most part, these adaptations have failed. The failure is usually due to over-optimism on the part of both teacher and pupil. Oriental teachers coming to this country usually assume that their students are already well advanced. In reality, the average student has accomplished practically nothing in himself. The problem has been to work out a program which cannot cause difficulty, misunderstanding, or abuse. It is seriously believed that it is impossible for the student to get himself into difficulty through the study of this book. Genuine progress can be made towards a fuller understanding of the old mystery teachings. The practice of metaphysical discipline will not immunize any individual against the experiences that are necessary to him in life. Metaphysics has no power over the laws of reincarnation and karma, but it helps the student to understand and appreciate these laws as they work out in his own life. The law of cause and effect is inviolate in nature. Metaphysics will give you the courage to start right causes in motion and patience to work out the effects of causes already set in motion. Metaphysics will not remove obstacles, suffering, poverty, relatives, or debt, but it will give you the intelligence to face these assorted ills with a good hope, a high integrity, and a sound conviction. Metaphysics strengthens character, and thus it does help the individual directly to gain mastery over any group of circumstances by facing them fairly and solving them honestly. The law of karma, or cause and effect, applied to the actions of man, is the raison d'etre of all metaphysical disciplines. The student earns a better fate through discipline. Hence, it is inevitable that he will enjoy a better destiny. All causes produce effects consistent with themselves. If the life is put in order through philosophy and realization, the result is not only greater security at the present time, but a better future in lives to come. In ancient times, those who desired to devote their lives to the sacred sciences traveled into distant countries to study with great and learned masters. Pythagoras received candidates behind the curtain. It was only after years of discipleship that his pupils were permitted to behold his face. The Pythagorean disciplines are typical of the old methods of development. Candidates for admission to his school brought a report of their character and conduct from leading citizens in their communities. They had to have achieved a high proficiency in mathematics, astronomy, and music, or they were not eligible. Pythagoras determined by metaphysical means the disciplines necessary for each of his disciples. These disciplines were rigidly enforced for varying periods of time, the maximum being 20 years. Under the personal supervision of the master and his more advanced students, the beginner progressed safely. They were protected from all of the dangers which arise from an incorrect interpretation of metaphysical truths. Nearly 25 centuries have passed since the burning of the Pythagorean Institute at Crotona. One by one, the old mystery schools have disappeared. The truth seeker of today may no longer beg admission at the temple gates. The disciple must discipline himself. Apollonius of Tyana, who lived centuries after the death of Pythagoras, imposed all of the Pythagorean disciplines upon himself, even the vow of 5 years of silence. He assumed these disciplines voluntarily because he knew that they were essential to the spiritual development of himself. This must be the attitude of the modern student. Evolution has brought to the average man the power to analyze and estimate his own character. It is no longer necessary for the priestcraft to show him the forces of right and wrong. Each man is now his own high priest, his own initiator, the master of his own metaphysical life. Having realized this, your own integrity must strengthen you for the path of discipleship. Adaptation. My friend is a charming gentleman of pure Anglo-Saxon ancestry. His forefathers probably died on the field of Hastings, but this man looks like and thinks like a Chinese. Today, he is an elderly gentleman with slanting oriental eyes and a scraggly white mustache of Confucian cut. He has devoted his entire life to the study of Chinese. Frequently, he is called upon by Chinese scholars to interpret for them the intricacies of their own language. This learned and kindly man is a geographical misfit. From the viewpoint of reincarnation, this is probably his first embodiment in an Occidental form. Biographers of Ralph Waldo Emerson have referred to him as the New England Brahmin. His library included most of the Eastern classics. His whole approach to philosophy is Hindu. These are outstanding examples, but each one of us has come to this present life from some other national or racial background. If you will study the faces and temperaments of people around you, you will observe how the law of reincarnation has brought together the ends of the earth. Because each one of us has a different spiritual background, we must each study and learn and grow in a different way. Because reincarnation has given each of us a different evolutionary experience, we must each study and learn and grow in a different way. Because karma has confronted each of us with different forms of compensation, we must each study and learn and grow in a different way. Philosophy is largely a matter of interpretation. Interpretation depends upon viewpoint. That is why when two people of different spiritual experiences attempt to interpret a certain metaphysical idea, each will arrive at a different conclusion. Each student must interpret metaphysics according to his own character and his own needs. As St. Paul said, one man's meat is another man's poison. This individuality in all men requires that any specific method of metaphysical development must be adapted carefully to each student. It is impossible to make such an adaptation without considerable personal study of the student himself and his reaction to different forms of knowledge. That is why this book must carefully avoid any form of metaphysical discipline which might lead to injury or disappointment. There are two great divisions of metaphysics, one Eastern and the other Western. The Western branch had its beginnings in Egypt and Chaldea. The Eastern branch had its origin in the pre-Vedic codes of Trans-Himalaya. The Western school developed along objective lines. It found its greatest exponent in Plato, the most perfect among Greek philosophers. The Eastern school, essentially subjective in its psychology, achieved its highest proficiency in the teachings of Gautama Buddha. In its psychology of life, the Western world essentially is objective. The Occidental believes what he sees. He values physical things and physical life. He strives after position and power. Modern industrialism, with its high measure of efficiency and its entire lack of idealism, is the inevitable product of an objective philosophy perpetuated by a comparatively unphilosophical people. To the Hindu, the invisible is real, and the visible is an illusion. The Oriental mind perceives clearly the hierarchies of celestial power. The goal of Eastern idealism is complete renunciation of all physical attachments and all physical possessions. The Eastern sage exists for the sole purpose of achieving detachment. He dreams of the day when he will have nothing, while the Occidental dreams of the day when he will have everything. In the East, wisdom is wealth. In the West, physical and visible accumulations are most desired. We know that all extremes are imperfect. In moderation lies the greatest virtue. So the wise man of today is trying to blend Eastern and Western thought. He seeks to achieve a balance between attachment and detachment, between possession and renunciation. In our modern educational system, millions of young people are taught the same thing. Knowledge becomes for them a mimeographed education in which spiritual values are entirely ignored. The emphasis on sports and social events blinds them to the more serious values of study. In the East, the foundations for a metaphysical life are laid in childhood. The average Hindu boy of 12 knows more about religion than the average American clergyman of 60. Mysticism is a birthright in the East. In the West, it must be sedulously achieved, often at the expense of economic security. I have seen a Brahmin mendicant sitting beside the burning Ghats along the Ganges who could neither read nor write, yet he could recite the entire Veda from memory. The recitation was exceedingly rapid, yet it took about 14 days, as the Veda is considerably longer than the Old Testament of the Bible. You may ask, did this holy man understand what he was reciting? For the most part, the answer is yes. For this beggar is to be numbered among 4 million Hindus who have renounced all worldly possessions, home, and security to wander from one sacred shrine to another. In the East, this is called the religious life. No one would recommend to a Western truth seeker to follow such a course. But as a Hindu pundit once told me, a man who gives his all for what he believes can give no more. We are fundamentally a materialistic people. Few are the Occidentals who are not in some measure bound by material values, attachments, and ambitions. Metaphysics is to us an avocation, a hobby, a luxury, a passing experience. We must accept the materiality of our race as part of the divine plan. Like the prodigal son, we must metaphorically go down into Egypt and herd swine. In the end, we shall be richer for all the experiences that we shall have gained. We shall be wiser and nobler for our journey in the land of darkness and error. The reward for our experience is to be truly greater than the angels in acquiring wisdom, courage, vision, and truth. Because we are very different from Easterners, we must adapt their mystical philosophies to present conditions. Because we are different from the ancients, we must adapt their mystical philosophies to present conditions. We must be practical idealists with a clear understanding of our own limitations. All men naturally desire to be wise, but individuals and races must approach the problem of wisdom in various ways according to their own understanding and their own experience. Metaphysically speaking, our materiality results in a condition of isolation. As long as we deny the reality of the superphysical worlds, so long they will remain close to us. As long as we live by a material standard in a divine world, we isolate ourselves from those innumerable divine energies which fill all being and sustain all life. To the Easterner, God is indwelling, the very heart and substance of all things. To the Westerner, God is very distant, something which must be approached with fear and trembling. We might enter into the presence of a great monarch, prostrating ourselves before the splendor of the divine presence. In the quest for truth, these differences must be taken into consideration. Spiritual disciplines must be adapted skillfully to various needs. The tempo of Western living has unfitted us for the peculiar sedentary, meditative life of the East. A great Indian saint once was asked to come to America and teach. He raised his hands in horror, explaining that the confusion of Western life would be fatal to his highly sensitive nervous system. In a way, this same confusion is exceedingly detrimental to any Western student who attempts the contemplative life. The vibrations of a large Occidental city are discordant. They react violently on the sensitive centers of the soul ganglia or sympathetic nervous system. The physical body of the Western person has increased its resistance to external impulses. It has developed a shock-resistant mechanism. Thus, he is more blunt, more obvious, less imaginative than the Oriental. It is necessary to his survival that he live constantly in the evident. Also that he build philosophies to justify this course of procedure, and that he depreciate any other system of living. It is all part of an escape mechanism. It is not surprising, therefore, that the more sensitive type of Westerner accepts gladly the fragments of Oriental philosophy that come to the West. Eastern mysticism appeals to the soul, starved by Western materialism. Unfortunately, exploitation often follows. Several sincere Eastern teachers have come to America in the last 50 years as missionaries of Eastern philosophies. They have attracted wide attention. Their doctrines have found great favor. But these teachers discovered that for some inexplicable reason, the most serious of their Western students suffered, sickened, and died. The difficulty was that the Oriental had overestimated the spiritual understanding of his Western pupils. He was interested in great systems of philosophy, but his pupils were interested in his personality. They believed in him and not in what he said. They brought all of their spiritual blindness to bear on the subject with tragic results. Various forms of yoga, breathing exercises, and Kundalini stimulation are among the dangerous teachings which have come from the East. These teachings are perfectly reasonable and normal to the East Indian who devotes his life to the purification of his body and the unfoldment of the spiritual perceptions. But as a plaything for Occidental people who hope that they can breathe themselves into a state of grace, such systems are entirely inappropriate. When the typical American businessman takes up yoga, he has neither the appreciation to understand it nor the integrity to apply it. For him, it is a dangerous experiment fully as unfortunate as introducing high-pressure economics into India. When a student of metaphysics attempts to develop his superphysical faculties without proper instruction, psychism is ever present. Accounts of psychic phenomena excite the imagination of the uninformed. Ouija boards, visions, trances, table tippings, and crystal gazing possess an insidious fascination. Phenomena become the proof of spiritual power. This fact is reminiscent of one of the yesterday yogis who proved his cosmic consciousness by driving an automobile down a business street without any gasoline. This exploit won him a veneration that wisdom can never expect. It is most important that any student of metaphysics who expects to make any true progress in the development of his inner life should refrain from all forms of psychism. They should avoid psychic phenomena. The best schools in both the East and the West warn their disciples against psychism and mediumship. In India, psychic phenomena are practiced by members of the lower grades of yoga. They are never practiced by students of Raja Yoga. The problem of psychism has been in mind throughout the preparation of this book. It has influenced the selection of certain disciplines of a positive and non-psychic quality. The sensitiveness to superphysical forces that the student of mysticism develops must be under the control of his personal will at all times. It must, under no condition, lead into mediumistic vagaries. First realization. The wisdom religion teaches us that while in personality we are many, in principle we are one. There is one spirit in all men. Though innumerable artificial barriers made by man divide and isolate us, we are truly of one substance and one purpose. We are more than similar. We are identical. We are manifestations of the one. We bear witness in our own parts to the one. This kinship of life makes us truly universal. This identity of purpose and end makes us truly universal. As surely as all plants grow out of the same earth, so all lives come out of the one life. We are all plants with roots in space. We are nourished by one energy. We are growing up to reveal one intelligence. To the degree that man can perceive this unity, to that degree he is wise. As long as he can think always of this impersonal unity, he can avoid division and discord. An understanding of philosophy reawakens the spirit in man. It restores to him the realization of the one. Our keynote from now on will be the universalization of the individual. That is, the development of universal values in each student. Begin your philosophic life by gaining an imperturbable realization of the life and of the law. Upon this, you will build your meditation. Attempt in your own daily life the chemistry of vision. Bring the best and highest ideals of yourself to bear upon each situation that arises. Live up to the best that you know. Observe how quickly problems will disappear. Everything that is difficult becomes easy when it is done with truth as the criterion of action. If you gain only a little understanding of life upon which you may build a positive and helpful philosophy, you will have accomplished much. You cannot achieve perfection in a day or even in one lifetime. But if you work toward it, you will come closer and closer to understanding. This realization is your first step. Ponder well upon it. For upon the rock foundation of individual integrity, you will build the house of universal understanding. To attempt to live beyond what we know is dangerous. Not to live up to what we know is equally perilous. End of chapter 1. Please stay tuned for part 2. Peace, blessings, much love, and enlightenment to you all. On Earth, there was once a people who held the knowledge of the universe across space and time. They were the Israelites. Over time, their wisdom was scattered among all nations, with each taking a piece. In the end, this left them destitute. Now, listen to this profound wisdom passed down through great works, presented in your voice, from your own perspective, from the perspective of the Israelites themselves. For early access to chapters and full audiobooks, consider becoming a member. For just $10 per month, you can unlock exclusive access to this priceless wisdom, once stolen from our ancestors. Hear their voices through your own as you join us on this journey of discovery and reclamation.